Well, being a leader that sets the mission and vision and has to connect that all the way through personal execution is like that linkage is alignment, like along the way is alignment. So like what was my experience that changed my perspective? It was like from being a high performing individual contributor to somebody that set the top of the pyramid and then had to get all the individual contributors to do the things that we need them to do to achieve those goals. So it was just a matter of perspective, actually.
Yeah.
Experience and perspective.
Were there things, like as you moved more into a leadership role, were there things that you saw that like made it seem like a really urgent need?
Yeah, it's like doing a root cause analysis when you experience friction. So I I'm I might be over indexing on it, but it kind of seems like almost every piece of friction in the business can be backtracked to alignment. And like then you have to define what alignment is. And I take a pretty broad view of it. It's like alignment on the definition of what success means like in the role. What does success mean in a customer? What is the selection of the KPIs that you're using to hold people accountable? How are you structuring the organization? So I have like a pretty broad view of connecting like vision to strategy to the execution. And so to answer your question, like when I experience friction in the business, I can usually track it back to, oh, those two people just don't have the same definition of what a customer success manager does. And that person's incentive plan was actually written in a misaligned way, so they did a different behavior than we want them to. So if you have a broad enough definition of alignment, when you experience friction, you can usually figure out why everyone seems to be rational. You can usually figure out why people are not doing what you want them to do.
Yeah, and I like those examples like role clarity and, incentive structures. What are like other types of friction that you've seen that you've had to tackle and like that you've framed as an alignment challenge?
Yeah, so customer success had a task to come up with early indicators of health that was like off track. And they used engagement in the tool. Like, are they logging in? Are they doing things as a way to track that? And then because they were using that as a way to track that, they were trying to influence how often the customers went in the tool to do their job. That being said, it could be interesting to some businesses. My vision for the product is to get the customers more value while doing less. So I actually want them in the tool less, and I want the product to support the ability to have them do it less. And so engagement is it's actually just noise. It's
Yeah.
irrelevant. So that I thought was a pretty good example because it really starts with like, what's my vision for the company's value delivery to customers? How does product facilitate that? And then how do we measure success at the customer level? And if you don't get all of those things correct, then customer success starts doing something wrong.
That's right. Yeah, and there's all these standard KPIs about what customer success looks like, or utilization metrics, and all these different things that CSM should be tracking in terms of like customer health. And to your point, it has to stem from, what is like the theory of change that your company is putting forward as its business model. How is that realized through the use of the product? I think the other piece that's in there is like, are you actually selling that accurately? Like, are you selling the solution in a way that is going to lead to customers using your product in the intended way? I have yet to come across a company where the vision for the business is super crisp. It is carried through in terms of the solution and the value that is like articulated during the sales cycle. There is a clear connection between what is being sold and what the intention is for how the customer uses the product. And then there's an accountability mechanism and like support and resources to ensure that that happens. Like, what does that look like in your experience in terms of why that's so hard to get right?
Man, it's so hard to get right because you just described almost everyone in the organization being involved in that chain. And the goalposts move as you learn. And so like I started the business, a fraud detection contingency business, and now we're like a, a government digital transformation process automation business. And so like, and all along the way we were learning and incrementally changing. And so as the goalposts move, like getting everyone on board each time is just like really difficult. So you have like, I think the best way to do it is to like have good leadership communication at like milestones, like a rhythm of leadership communication of this is the target, this is the target. I realize we're changing it, but like this is the target, get on board. So there will be a lag there of adoption. And then to have like execution artifacts like a sales handoff with everyone in the room. Like when you sell the deal, not just an internal handoff between sales and CS and onboarding and training, but like get the customer in the room with their decision maker and the end users that are going to be on task to achieve the goals. So like everyone understands, customer and team understand what the definition of success is, why we bought, and what we're shooting at. So like that's a bit of a band-aid, but like it is a effective like catch-up mechanism.
Mm-hmm. And the other topic that came up when we were talking earlier was around the role of like transparency and working in the open in terms of like what are the other catch-up mechanisms? How do you keep people aware that the goalposts are moving and that that's a natural process as the company evolves? But like, what are some of the practical ways that you keep people aligned as things move and shift?
We have a rule that you can't direct message anybody. Like it's like not allowed, and we have a like what I would call a shame mechanism. That's not the right word, but we have a Slack. Like Slack is our communication tool, and direct messaging is what people's traditional go-to is to get an answer. It's out of like it's not allowed. You have to put it in a channel so everyone can see the conversation evolving, because that's what it is. It's like it's always just kind of a living, evolving thing. And if people can't track it through conversation, which is where the change happens, then they're off. They're not on board. They didn't see it. So we basically make a communication policy that makes communication happen in the open unless there's an exception, and the exception scope is thin. And then when people don't obey it and it comes to like somebody becomes aware of it, like they mark them for it. They're like, hey, why didn't this happen in the channel? It's just a little one, Jess, but like it's something.
It's actually pretty huge, and it sounds really little, like it sounds like a tactical kind of operational principle, but it to me that sounds like something that you can't do that well unless you have a lot of trust on your team, and that people aren't going to feel panicked every time they put something in a public channel and they, are worried about revealing any vulnerability or insecurity or not having the right answer or asking a dumb question. So like, what role has I guess just building like a really high trust team had on your communication and openness and like flexibility at the leadership level, but then creating that culture that like cascades down and allows people to feel comfortable working in the open?
I think that starts with the founders, quite frankly. Like that's like a style of the founders that like manifests itself in the style of the people that they hire, and then manifests itself in the style of how they manage their individual contributors. And like I'm sure that psychological safety is an overused buzzword, but like there are no dumb observations here. There are just lack of clarity that you're highlighting with whatever observation you come up with.
Yeah.
If it's way off base, it's because it's not clear. Like if you came up with something that's way off base and messaged it in the channel, like it's because we haven't described something clear enough for you, loud enough in a channel that you understand. So I think that's a founder thing of like taking that onus as our job to make sure that people being off base is our fault, not theirs.
Yeah, I love that. That's super helpful. Is if there are other leaders out there, who I know there are, who are struggling with this, and all the upstream kind of things that come with this, having that flexibility, getting alignment at all these different levels, What's one piece of advice you would give them in terms of like the first step that they should take to start addressing this?
Oh man. Uh, I would say, well, I'd want it to be contextually a step in the contextual right direction. So like understanding what their biggest challenges are on their biggest levers and like kind of being honest with themselves about that. Like, what are our biggest problems that have the biggest chance of moving the needle? And um, and I'm going to hop out of your question a little bit here because the response is going to be contextually relevant to what they come up with there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it's about like people not feeling safe to be transparent, then like you probably have a leadership executive coaching problem. If it's about like customer adoption, you probably have like a value communication problem. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so it's, I think the first step is being honest with yourself about what your biggest challenges are.
And do you think that is there a way for, I guess, do you have any tips on like how leaders can identify what the biggest challenges in the organization are, not just be biased about sort of the narrow slice that they see day to day?
Yeah, I would say solicit external advice. I think I personally have gotten tremendous benefit from like laying out the cards on the table to somebody else that I respect that has good experience in that scope and be like, listen, like here are all the things that are going wrong. Like I can't see the problem. I can't see what the thing is here. Can you help me? Um, I sit on a couple boards. I feel like being out of the day to day gives you like some pretty good perspective on being able to connect those dots for people. And then I've seen it like wildly change the priorities of the leader in the seat that is actually like super capable, super good executor. Like it doesn't, it's not like a commentary on a person's inability to lead. It's like a perspective thing.
Mm-hmm. Love it. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. I think what I'll do is I'll write up like a little blog post and I'll share it with you first. And if there's anything you
Cool.
want to tweak or change about it, let me know. And otherwise, I'll just post it to my website and add it to my newsletter. And yeah, I'll probably share it on LinkedIn and stuff. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
is there
This is
anything else
really,
you want me to like say or include that
yeah.
you want to?
I had one other point that I was thinking about when I was
Yeah.
like thinking about this concept was if you have too many definitions of success, like uh, there will be conflicts between them. So like you got to get like you know how in a regression, like an algorithmic regression. Like you remove the covariables. You remove the covariables because like they aren't adding anything, and if anything, they're actually creating noise and conflict. Like this is very statistical,
Yeah.
but like it applies here because if you define too many KPIs or too many things, like they're bound to have conflicting variables between them. So like limiting your definitions is both a point of clarity and like removes conflict.
What does that mean? Like, does that mean having like practically just fewer OKRs?
I think so. Quite frankly, like think about what the OKR that really friggin' matters is, and what all of them actually roll up to like business OKRs, like new bookings, retention, like they all roll up to that. But you gotta go one level deeper and figure out what is the one metric or a couple metrics that everything else rolls up to and like contributes to.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how you want to fit that in, but like I think there's some point to be made around alignment and how having less is more because it minimizes the chance of alignment conflict.
And it sounds, and I'm curious in your experience, like, do you find that it's required to have some productive conflict up front to get to that narrower list of goals? Like, you kind of have to have productive, open, trusting conflict with leaders in order to get to the point where you've got fewer goals up front so that you can reduce like unproductive conflict down the line.
Yeah, I think that's like underpins probably everything.
Yeah. Was there anything, and I'll let you go in a second, but I'm just curious about this, like anything in your experience that really helped you get to fewer goals Because I know that that's a hard thing for every company.
I think starting. A lot of people wait to get the perfect ones, and they're missing the opportunity to start and add a feedback mechanism and tack to the right goal.
Yeah, and just start testing. And yeah. And then I think also to your point, like being super transparent around the fact that this is going to change as we get more information.
Yeah.
We're going to evolve our definitions of success. Our OKRs might change. Our goal is to put something out there, be in testing and learning mode, be super transparent about what we find, and then refine as we go.
Yeah,
I don't feel like enough leaders say that out loud, you know?
That's a good point. Your expectation setting that like this is going to be like, I heard our private equity group said something brilliant. We spent like 3 weeks of intense effort on building a budget. And then once we were done, the GP said, well, we know one thing about this budget. It's 100% wrong. And I was like, he's right. He's absolutely right. It's 100% wrong. We will not hit any of these things exactly, but it's directionally right. And we have a feedback mechanism.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Cool. Well, thank you. Thanks for making the time.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll do it again. If there's other things you want to talk about in the future, let me know.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.